Hi everybody, it's Shelley Brander. I'm back with our second episode of Knit Stars Unplugged here at my home in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida with Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley looks like he's going to take a nap while I talk to you. This is filmed on my humble phone, unlike Knit Stars Masterclasses. And if you don't know what Knit Stars Masterclasses are, if you're new to Knit Stars, we are in our 10th year of producing cinematic masterclasses where I fly all around the world and film on site with the most amazing knit and crochet stars and creative people in the world, designers, dyers, thought leaders. And we're getting ready to have our final enrollment sign-ups for our 10th anniversary season. So I thought it would be really fun, and if there's a little background noise, I apologize. There's a little street noise, there's a little occasional airplane noise because I am at the beach, but I'm hoping you get to hear the ocean from time to time. So I'll pull this nice and close, and hopefully you can hear the ocean. So I thought it would be really fun to share with you everything I ate when I flied around the world to film Knit Stars Masterclasses. I've been joking that I gained the season 10. It's kind of surprising. I didn't put on 100 pounds with the amazing food I ate everywhere. Our hosts in every location just knocked it out of the park. And of course, when you film in any new location, you want to test and check out the local cuisine. So that is a big fun part. It's part of why I think people often say, offer to carry my bags when we travel. Sounds good until you're actually carrying the bags. But anyway, so let's jump in. Oh, and one more thing before I jump into the food part, and kind of related. Every week for the last 20 years, I've written a newsletter. It's called Shelley's Sunday Yarns. It's been called various things through the years, but it's a great way to keep up with Knit Stars, to find out what's going on. It's free, and you can sign up for that in the show notes of this episode. So Shelley's Sunday Yarns. I share behind the scenes stories, just like I'm going to talk about today, and also project curation. And I always include a recipe, something that's easy and fast to make and gives you more time to knit and crochet so you spend less time in the kitchen. So, okay, let's jump in. So I was thinking, I went back and I made a list about all 15 people that we have filmed with in a total of, well, really it's more than 15 cities because some of these were filmed in multiple cities. But let's start with what I still think it was the first trip of the season of the 15 masterclasses we filmed. And it was, I still think, the most memorable meal, and that was in Vietnam. So we filmed with Laura Zander in Vietnam. Laura doesn't live in Vietnam. She's the CEO of Jimmy Bean's Wool, but she has a long-standing collaboration with the people who helped create Della Q bags that are now part of the Jimmy Bean's Wool group. And so we went to Vietnam. We were in Ho Chi Minh City first, and meeting some of the people that she works with and collaborates with. But then we went to Sa Pa, which is about, I think a 6-hour ride outside of Hanoi. So we flew from Ho Chi Minh City to Hanoi, and then we took a bus ride 6 hours up into Sa Pa, which blew me away. It was so, apparently it's changed a lot in the last few years since the pandemic has just exploded in growth. There were lights, camera action, lots of things going on there. It almost felt like a Vegas scene. But the most part that was super memorable was we went and met a woman who owns a co-op and started a co-op of women creating batik fabrics and other handcrafts in Sa Pa, Vietnam. She was amazing, and we got to meet all the people involved in creating these batik fabrics. It's like a 30-something step process to create, like it's the most handmade you can possibly imagine. They're finding the roots to create the dye. They're gathering the beeswax from the hives to create the beeswax to treat the fabric before it's dyed with the batik prints. It's just an amazing process. But the meal that was so memorable is we sat down with all of the women that were involved in the co-op, and they created a meal for us that they brought out traditional Vietnamese foods from their specific area, and these platters of foods. And we all sat down in a big group and shared stories. And even though we didn't speak the same language, it was just as I mean, we had some of the people did a little bit. We managed. You just manage. You find a way to connect around the story and the community and the kind of that communion of spending time together. And then after we'd eaten this most delicious food, it probably was the most delicious meal we ate the entire season. They broke out some kind of alcohol. I mean, it was middle of the day, but they brought out some kind of ceremonial that they basically, it was the meal they would prepare for a family celebration. And then they had some kind of clear alcohol. They tried to explain it, I think, a grain alcohol of some kind that they made, basically a moonshine. And we all took shots of this stuff. Most of us did, and it was kind of part of the whole ritual. And they were just having the best time. We all had the best time, and it was, incredibly memorable experience, kind of what you dream about when you're having, spending time with people and getting to know them and like really sinking into their culture and working to understand and then share that back with our community. So that was the first meal. That one took a while to explain, but now I'll run through some of the other most memorable things that I ate while filming season 10 over the last, it took about, I think we started, that trip was at the end of March. It was a very condensed filming, 15 masterclasses. Next place we went was Chile, and we were filming with Pope Vergara. And the meal that I remember most is we sat down to dinner. Me and my boyfriend came on that trip, and we sat down with Pope and Chris, her husband, and they just had the most lovely love story, which is very entwined in her story and will be part of her masterclass in her documentary. But I don't even remember what we ate. It was just a really special time together. But I also do remember we all pulled out our phones to take a picture of the food. And I joked that my daughter always says, phone eats first. Like she always takes a picture because she's Gen Z, so she always takes a picture of everything before she eats. And Pope said, oh, we say that too. We say feed phone first. And so now that's my new favorite thing to say, feed phone first before we eat. So luckily, I did take lots of pictures of what I ate so I can add those to this video. But the other thing that was really delicious with Pope is she had empanadas for us when we arrived, and I think they're the best empanadas I've ever had. We tried before diving into filming her workshop. And then the next trip was Europe, and that is, we started out with Franklin Habit in Paris. And this was another super memorable moment. Of course, everything we ate in Paris was phenomenal, like it's known to be. Some everyday cappuccino, pastries, again. But the most memorable moment on the last day with Franklin, after filming, there's a helicopter going over. Lots of traffic because I'm near a military base, so lots of interesting traffic flies over. On the last day, after filming the rest of Franklin's B-roll, which is like additional footage that goes over their interview story to show you where they live and what they're all about, we had filmed him in a cemetery that's a famous cemetery, La Pere Cemetery, where he loves to go and sit and knit and crochet and think. And he's like, oh, let's go to this creperie that I've always wanted to go to over on the left bank. We were kind of near there. So we go into this creperie, we sit down. It's very, very tight quarters. We're kind of in this bench seating. And we decide to order Franklin and Brad, our cinematographer, who travels obviously with us, decided to order the special of the day, which was like a crepe with duck. And I got a more straightforward, it was like a ham and cheese, sounded pretty basic. These crepes came out, and I took my first bite, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's one of the best things I've ever put in my mouth. And then all of a sudden I hear this sniffling next to me, and I look over, and Brad has tears running down his cheeks. No joke. He was like, Brad is known to get emotional very easily. His heart is really in the stories of what we film. And he's sitting there crying over this crepe. And I look at him, I thought maybe some memory had come up for him or something else had happened, but it was no. He said, but he could barely get the words out. He said, have you ever eaten anything that tasted so amazing that it made you emotional? And I was like, it was a really good crepe, but I wasn't actually crying over it. We were just like, Brad, he was so touched by this food. And and so it forever will be known as the crying crepe. And so the crying crepe story in Paris is super memorable. Also, yeah, we had meals with Franklin that were wonderful. And then we moved on to, we took a 6-hour train from Paris to Barcelona, where we met up with Cecilia Lozada. And then we went from there on another little train to her town of Sitges. I may mispronounce, I apologize if I mispronounce anything. But with her, the most memorable meal was, again, there was lots of coffee. I feel like coffee is one of the key Knit Stars food groups. We always say Knit Stars runs on coffee, lots and lots of it, and apparently pastries. So we went with Cecilia. There was a really cool cafe we hung out at one point. We ate amazing meals by the ocean. And then we went to one of her favorite places to have this traditional salad, Catalonian salad, and I totally will mispronounce it. I think it's Xato, but it's like a seafood salad, very salty, very unique, and that's her favorite, one of her favorite meals. And I remember that super well. We were looking out over the ocean at our hometown and enjoying this very local dish it was a special moment too. And from there we went on to Lisbon to film with Felipa Carneiro. I also can't pronounce that perfectly. I should have it down by now, but you see somebody's name the first time and you spell it in your head, and then pronunciation can be challenging. But anyway, we went to film with Felipa, and that was the height of the pastry experience of season 10, because I came to learn that kind of every moment in Lisbon is celebrated with a pastry. And there's all these traditional pastries. There's cafes that specialize in just one single kind of pastry because it's so emblematic, symbolic for them. And the story that resonated here was we went to one cafe that she had really kept talked up of, we've got to have this pastry. We went there, and she was telling the story, and it was a very custardy pastry. And she explained that there's a lot, this pastry is famous because there was a famous, a monastery that they used, the nuns used the egg whites, only the whites of the eggs, to starch the priests' robes. And so they had leftover yolks. So they had to do something with the yolks. So they would bake these pastries and sell them that were made with the yolks only. And that was the story behind this one specific pastry, but apparently this was a common thing, lots of yolk-based pastries in the area for the same reason. So that was really cool. And we also had a really memorable meal at listening to fado music, which is people sing these amazing traditional fado songs, and accompanied by very minimal musical instruments, but it's mainly about the singing, very emotional, these fado singers are super well known in the area, have huge followings, and then had a meal while we listened to this singing. It was a very dark, moody, amazing room. That was a highlight for sure. And then that was the end of most of our international travel. From there, it was back to the States, and the next trip was we kind of started with the farthest away trip and then moved closer and closer in. I live in Florida. Brad lives where I'm originally from, in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So we would fly to all of these places. Of course, there's lots of airplane food. Can't say any of that was a highlight, but there was a lot of that too. There were a lot of solo meals on this trip, which I also really enjoyed. As a mom of 3 growing up, most of my meals, most of my life have been with my 3 kids, my husband at the time, and cooking lots of meals. I really, in my lifetime, hardly ever had solo meals. I've come to find I really enjoy that as part of this experience, because I find when I'm traveling and eating solo, I soak in more of the atmosphere. I notice more of what's going around me, the staff, the chefs, the cooking, hustling, all the movement around me, the other patrons, what's going on outside the windows. So I find it to be there's better presence. I'm more observant when I'm eating solo. So there was a lot of that. But on this trip to LA, actually, my daughter Mallory, who lives in Denver now and helps out with social media for Knit Stars, came out and joined me. So that was really special. We had one particular meal out. We were staying in Pasadena. We filmed first so we had a meal out at, it wasn't a Michelin type, but it was kind of that kind of experimental restaurant. And that was really cool, just mainly because I was with Mallory. Then we filmed with Dominique Cavillo she lives not in Pasadena, but reachable from Pasadena because we were filming with 2 different LA stars. She had Cuban traditional pastries ready for us when we arrived, and lots of coffee again. And then we filmed with London Kay on the other, kind of in another part of LA. And what I remember with her is not so much food, but we did have coffee at a cafe, and she had her baby with her, Leo, and he was in a hand crocheted, she had yarn mommed a baby sling, and she was wearing that with her signature eye crocheted on it. So I've got a picture of that. It's one of my favorites. Wasn't really about the food, but it was a cool moment enjoying coffee together. And then from there, the next trip was to Rutherford, New Jersey to film with Samantha Brunson, Bobble Clubhouse. Highlight there was Gigi, Gay Glaspie. Gigi made it, drove over. She lives in New Jersey also, so she drove over. We had an amazing meal together. We ate Gigi ordered some kind of appetizer. I still don't know what it was, but it was they almost looked like giant beignets, but they were really delicious. That was a highlight. And then from there, we filmed with Nora Gahn in New Hampshire. And the most memorable meal there, we walked across the street from where she works, which is adjacent to Harrisville Designs. She works in kind of it used to be the boiler room of this sort of barn complex. And we walked across the street to the general store where they sold everything from local art and, everything you would need it from a general store, but they also had really delicious fresh food with fresh local produce brought in. And there was I think it was a kale salad there. That was the highlight. Oh, and we were staying in a bed and breakfast because she lives in a relatively, in an area without a lot of hotels and such. And we stayed in this bed and breakfast with the most amazing, probably one of the top 5 breakfasts I've ever had. I really, truly, if I were only to eat one meal a day, it would be breakfast. I'm a breakfast girl. I love my eggs, love my coffee, love my everything about breakfast in the morning. So that was a very cool one. Then from there, it was the D&D trip. So we went to Des Moines, Iowa with Jen Gigley and had a great, she had pastries for us too. We went out, Jen and I had a really nice dinner together. Had some space to do that because of how the timing of the days worked out. And then from there to Detroit, which I've been to several times filming for Knit Stars, but we were filming with Natalie Thomas. And the super highlight there was we filmed in her home, and her mom had baked not 1, but 2 cakes for us and sent Brad and I each away with 2 slices of cake wrapped in aluminum foil. It was I just will never forget. We were driving away, and they're standing on the porch of their house, Natalie and her mom waving, and we've got our little aluminum foil. It just felt like, I always say Knit Stars is a big family. It's really true, and that was one of those very family moments. You come into people's homes. It's so sacred for people to let us into their house, into their private spaces, and to let us capture and film. There's just a huge amount of trust involved in that, and I never take that for granted. I just, in fact, look forward to doing even more of that in the coming seasons, leaning more and more into time spent with people in their space, in their hometowns, getting to really know them. That's the part that is real magic to me. Obviously, the workshops are wonderful. The patterns that stars create, the kits and everything are amazing, but it's the stories for me. It's always the stories. Same for Brad. From there, it was on to Nashville. So flew back to Florida, I think the very next week, drove to Nashville. Again, my boyfriend came with me, and this time Charles Barkley, who has gone down to sit on the ground, on the nice cool ground. On that trip, what was interesting, right off the bat, I went and had a meal with Ann and Kay at one of their favorite nearby restaurants. It was a Kurdish restaurant. I've never had Kurdish food before. It was delicious. And then actually, my boyfriend and I had a special restaurant date planned, and we did it, and it was amazing. Again, one of these kind of artistic restaurant where they bring you lots of tiny plates. Unfortunately, I did not feel good. Unbeknownst to me at that moment, I found out about 48 hours later that I was super sick. All of that traveling, I think, sort of took its toll. And 15 workshops is a lot to produce in a single short span of time. And so it turned out I had a kidney infection, bladder infection, UTI, very, very sick, on the border of like coming close to sepsis. So actually, I went into sort of a fever dream where I slept for about 48 hours straight, ended up in the ER. They figured it out, got my antibiotics on board. But for that reason, I didn't get to really enjoy that meal at that restaurant. So sorry, I may have to go back there someday because I think the food looked amazing. And then, so season 10 filming wound up for me with another super highlight of the trip, which was we went to Maine. Never been there before. We filmed with Alicia Plummer and then Clara Parks. They live, probably only 30 minutes as the crow flies, but they live a couple of hours away from each other because the way that Maine works, you've got a lot of these like inlets, or the water comes up all through, and you've got to kind of drive and weave your way around the coastline. Definitely the highlight of Maine was lobster. I love lobster. I live by the beach, but I don't get a lot of lobster. I get a ton of amazing fresh fish, which I'm so grateful for that I buy it. I love to cook fish, but I love lobster, and it doesn't get much better than Maine. So there were 3 to 4 lobster rolls had. I felt like I went on a personal lobster journey across Maine. I had one amazing dinner alone, solo dinner, the first night after we filmed with Alicia. And then there was lobster with Clara, a lobster roll at a restaurant, and even a lobster roll in the airport, which normally I wouldn't try eating lobster in an airport, but in Maine, it felt like an okay thing to do, and it was amazing. So lots and lots of lobster. And then also a highlight was when we arrived at Clara's. If you follow Clara, you know she loves to bake, and she had her mother's blueberry muffins made warm for us, sitting on the oven, and she made amazing coffee for Brad. And I forgot to mention that Brad is so serious about his coffee. He's really not bougie about much. Brad can roll with any punches. He's filmed in 60-something countries around the world in all kinds of environments. But he travels not only with his own coffee, but his own coffee grinder, a hand grinder. And he grinds his coffee every morning, and it's kind of like his big ritual. But Clara had coffee that was on par with Brad's hand ground. It was very impressive. So, but that muffin recipe, Clara even shared with us in our newsletter, which, by the way, if you've missed our newsletters, you can find them, our back issues of newsletters at knitstars.com/blog. And you'll see Clara's recipe at the bottom of that, of her issue, which was just 2-3 weeks ago, predating this YouTube. And then the last workshop I missed, I was so sad, but I decided after the whole kidney infection thing, my doctor and I thought that I should not do that 15th workshop. So Brad drove on from Maine. When I flew back, Brad drove on about 6 hours to film with Julianne Laboutier in New Brunswick, Canada. I was really sad to miss this trip. Obviously sad to not make the 15th one. And I'd never been to New Brunswick. I was really looking forward to that. And Brad and I high-fiving the final workshop of the season, but I had to prioritize my health. My doctor just felt like that would be too much. So I came back, but I know that Julie and Brad, I think Julie also had pastries ready for Brad. I swear this is not a prerequisite. If you're a star in a future season, feel no obligation to bring us any kind of a food. I always say you're the star when we film, and I want to treat them as a star and have it be an amazing experience for them from start to finish. We like to treat them rather than the other way around, but I do super appreciate all of you stars who just rolled out the red carpet for Brad and I throughout the season and made it a really special experience. Food helps me remember experiences. It's always so often part of our communal experiences as family and friends, and sitting at a table and enjoying a meal, especially that somebody made or chose for you, just feels again like a really, just really intimate and emotional experience. And I'm really grateful to all of you who added some fun food to our experience for the season. And most of all, can't wait for this season to come out into the world and for people to see what these stars have created and how they've poured their hearts in, and the way that that they let us into their life and their world, and wanted to make their masterclass something really special to last the ages, because once you buy Knit Star Season, you own it forever. And I always say, you know, make this a special thing that you separate out from everything else you offer, so that you can continue to offer it for years and years to come, and people will enjoy it. And so, yeah, that's everything I ate in Knit Stars Season 10. Not quite everything, but it was a lot, guys, and it was amazing. And now I'm back eating my simple diet of simple, basic food, and just cooking at home and loving restorative time with Charles Barkley and my boyfriend and the water, the ocean you can hear behind you. So thank you to everybody who's ever bought a Knit Stars season. I hope you'll consider joining us for season 10. We'll have signups opening September 28th at knitstars.com/masterclass. Also, you can go through any of these stars Instagrams that I've mentioned and purchase through their link, and they will get a considerable commission, as well as being paid. We pay them a flat fee to come and film with them, for them to prepare their course, and then they also can earn commission. So it's a great way to support your favorite star. Thanks for being here. Have a wonderful day. I'll be back soon with another edition of Knit Stars Unplugged.